Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Nate. I also go by Hockey Boy Nate. Today we are going to be talking about the leftovers of the severe weather outbreak that occurred over the Central Plains, as well as what will be happening towards the end of the week into Memorial Day weekend. But before we get started, I have to ask you all to take the time to go ahead. Please leave a like, subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, share this with friends and family and on social media. Also follow me on social medias. Links are all in the description down below. Speaking of stuff that's in the description down below, we also have timestamps for you all to jump around. So if you're not in any of these areas, but you see your area that might get impacted, feel free to jump to that specific time. I have these slides up here for you. So I have the day one outlook here for Thursday, May 27th. If you want to go to that, stick around. Then we also have our day two outlook, which consists of basically some widespread severe weather that occurs from the mid-Atlantic all the way down into the deep south and into the central plains, the southern plains. And then we also have a brief touch-up in what it's going to look like on Saturday, but we just talk about more or less this convective outlook and who all might be impacted. All right, but for now, we're going to head into the leftovers and a still strong, still pretty big risk for severe weather here for our day one outlook. We have a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here on this marginal, this green, the dark green right there. We have a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here with the slight risk in the yellow. And we have a 3 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here with the enhanced risk. Wherever you are, that is your more or less your severity of your severe weather. And so if you guys live in those areas, definitely would create a plan of action whenever well, if you are in a severe weather warning. If we take a look at our parameters here, we have the hail outlook with a 5% indicated in brown, 15 in yellow, 30 in red. So whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing 1-inch size hail or larger within a 25-mile radius. You also have the significant severe risk, or your hatched risk, that is in this black circle with dotted lines. That is an indication that you might have a 10% chance or greater probability of seeing 2-inch size hail or larger within a 25-mile radius. And that could do damage to all sorts of things like cars, windows of houses. It could even damage valuables. It can even hurt people outdoors. So whenever these storms roll on through, I highly recommend getting all the stuff that may be of value outside and bring it in. So definitely something to consider if you live in any of the hatched risk area. Then we also have our wind outlook, 5 in brown, 15 in yellow, 30 in red. Same old, same old. So whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing 58-mile-per-hour winds within a 25-mile radius. You also have the significant severe risk again, or hatched risk for wind. And so with this is a 10% chance or greater probability of you seeing hurricane force winds or 74-mile-per-hour winds or greater within a 25-mile radius. So that could easily topple trees and power lines, even do damage to houses, rip shingles and roof tiles off of houses. So definitely something that you're going to want to stay indoors for, and you're going to want to stay away from windows. Then last but not least, we also have our tornado probabilities here. 2% indicated in this giant green right here, 5% in this brown, and so whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing a tornado within a 25-mile radius. And so luckily, the 10% chance for tornadoes has withered away just slightly in southeastern Kansas. As I mentioned in my live stream last night, starting to kind of wither away a little bit. There's still a chance for some thunderstorms, and we'll actually show you what I mean here in a bit. Speaking of in a bit, we have our simulated reflectivity here. We're going to take a look at the timings of these storms. Now, if you want to pay attention and follow on through, feel free to do so. The times are at the top right-hand corner of your screen. And so just by looking at this, we have a massive area of severe weather here in northern Missouri, creating a lot of strong gusty winds as it moves on through. But we also have some leftover convection here in Oklahoma and Kansas. And you're going to see that start to linger and push on through into Missouri. But you also have some more storms that form on here near the Wichita areas. And that'll continue to basically develop and form this line of storms that'll basically consolidate from Kansas City all the way over to St. Louis, north of St. Louis, and all the way down towards Woodward and down to Amarillo and Lubbock. This will create a massive line of severe weather, as well as this prefrontal convection over here heading into Arkansas, northwestern parts of Arkansas. So definitely something to be mindful of, that there is some severe weather even out in front of these storms in the early afternoon hours. You'll start to see this line really start to consolidate as it gets into the late afternoon, into the early evening hours. And you can see by 7 o'clock tonight, you have a lot of strong storms that form along through here. A lot of strong damaging winds. Large hail is possible with this, including the threat for tornadoes. I personally think that an area here in central Missouri might have a better chance for tornadoes than others. I think there could be some supercells that might develop along the line behind the actual line of storms, but that's still to be determined a bit. But these storms back over here might be able to produce something tornadic as well. Even though they might not be in a 5% chance for tornadoes, I still think that there is the possibility for that. But yeah, as I said, as it consolidates, this will turn more and more to a gusty wind threat, and you can see how this continues to move on through Fort Smith. Little Rock starts to get impacted by 11, and then once you get into the overnight hours, that's when this thing really starts to diminish and kind of deteriorate. Dew points with this event are relatively high for the most part. All these yellows indicate 60-degree dew points and above, and you typically want that for severe weather. Even these oranges, some of the 70s here, indicate some really moist temperatures in the dew points, so that is definitely favorable for severe weather. Your convective available potential energy, or CAPE as we like to call it, the warm air rising and the cold air sinking in the atmosphere, the displacement between the two can indicate how much energy there is for thunderstorms to either form or sustain. So the more CAPE you have, the stronger the thunderstorms typically are. So typically we want to look out for around 2,000 joules per kilogram. And 2,000 joules per kilogram is right in along some of these yellows. And most of you can already see that we have some numbers over that. We have some in the reds, some in the purples, even some in the whites, which can indicate up to 5,000 joules per kilogram CAPE. A lot of energy here, especially along central Oklahoma. So there is definitely a lot of activity here with this severe weather today, and we have to be mindful of this as this continues to move on through. Now let's take a look at our wind shear here. The 850 millibar winds, or the 1 kilometer above ground level height winds. And a lot of these winds are coming out from the south and west. So a lot of southwesterlies here as this gets gets sucked practically into this low pressure system that sits over Iowa. And so a lot of these gusty winds here, 1 kilometer above ground level and upwards of 28, 30 knots. So it'd be around 35 miles per hour. Really surging into the storm, and we got some pretty strong wind shear here in the lower levels. In the mid levels, we're going to check to see if we have any sort of veering, more or less, to be able to determine if something could be tornadic. And we do have winds that are now coming a bit more from the west, and so we do have a veering with height, which could indicate that we have something tornadic, or potentially could have something tornadic in and along those this line of storms. Would not be surprised if we had embedded supercells within that line of storms that moved on through, or that was moving on through later on tonight. And so definitely something to be mindful of as this continues to head on into the evening hours for the Central Plains. Now this right here is what I like to call a sounding, or a sample of the environment. And so this basically tells me as to what all is happening within the actual event. And I only took a sounding for one spot here because I was really kind of puzzled as to why there wasn't really a whole lot of activity here, or a lot of people focusing over here in this general vicinity. But northern slash central Missouri, I took a sounding here, and this probably was the best sounding I could find out of all the areas here in this risk. And we have some pretty good stuff here, according to this sounding. But a lot of you guys may look at this and say, what do you mean pretty good stuff? it's just a bunch of squiggly lines and a bunch of, you know, nonsense. Got numbers, you got, you know, all sorts of different colors. Nate, I think you're a little crazy here. You might want to just take a break, sleep for a day or two. Now, I guarantee you, this stuff actually says stuff. So let's break it down section by section. So first off, we're gonna take a look at this area right here. This is a hodograph. This tells you your wind with height. So veering in the atmosphere, that's what I was talking about earlier. This shows you that. This shows you all sorts of storm characteristics within the hodograph. So just by looking at this, if you can imagine you had a radar right here at the center of this little graph, and you had a weather balloon that was being tracked by that radar, you can see that weather balloon travel with height. So it goes north and east, and then it heads down south and east, and then it goes east again, and then it goes down and then up again, and that's basically all she rode before it pops in the atmosphere. And so this general curvature in the hodograph here at the lower levels, the 0 to 3 kilometer range or anywhere within this red line, this is what we want to look out for things to become tornadic. And so this right here, in my opinion, checks out as a tornadic hodograph, albeit not a super, you know, as strong as the ones we saw yesterday, but still a tornadic hodograph that I feel could definitely become something from this. So by 3 p.m. Central Daylight Time here in northern/central Missouri, definitely could see something within that general vicinity. Next, we're going to be looking at is this giant box right here, and this is your skew-T diagram. Now, bear with me here. I'm going to try and explain this as best as possible. But this basically tells you your thermodynamics, or all your temperatures and dew points with height, as well as your energy. And so this is a good way for us to determine as to what the CAPE numbers are, what the updrafts potentially could be like, and whether or not there could be some significant winds and stuff like that. So the way we can determine that, first off, is we're going to look at say the heights of the skew-T. So over here you're going to see these red numbers more or less, and this actually tells you how tall you are looking at, or a specific spot of the sounding as to what you are looking at. So right here is 1 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 6 kilometers, 9 kilometers. So somewhere around here would be about 9 kilometers more or less, which is pretty remarkable to look at if you're a weather fanatic, for me, because we use this all the time to determine as to what stuff could be used across the board for us. But that's a good way to determine how at what level you are looking at. Down here you also have some numbers that might look like a bunch of English to you, but this is I guarantee you, this 50 all the way over here, all the way over to 0, all the way over to -40, these are actually temperatures in Celsius. So when you see this dotted line rise up like this, these dotted lines over here on the side, this is actually your temperature in Celsius, and so something to keep in mind with that. Now, the last bit of information here, well, it's actually a two-part information, are these squiggly lines here that go about the hodograph. So this green line right here is your dew point with height, your red line right here is your temperature with height, and then your dotted line right here, this is the pathway, or the way a developing thunderstorm would take in order to get to maturity. So with all the information you had as to what the temperature is indicated at the bottom, and the heights of you know, at what spot you're looking at, like right here is 9, right here is 6, how high up you're looking at a specific spot, that could be useful to determine with your maturing thunderstorms. Now, in the middle of the temperature and the developing thunderstorm line, or the developing parcel line, that right there is your convective available potential energy. That tells you how much energy there is in the atmosphere. Just by looking down here at the bottom, you can see there's a plethora amount of CAPE, 3,434 joules per kilogram. That is a plethora of CAPE here, for sure good enough amount for some severe thunderstorms, and definitely something to consider. One last thing is that right down here is also the LFC and the LCL. The LFC stands for level of free convection. Basically, the name entails convection means thunderstorm activity, more or less. So level of free convection is when thunderstorms can rise freely without being inhibited by anything. And so that's a good thing to determine energy output, as well as the LCL, which stands for low condensation level. It basically tells you how low to the ground the clouds are. And so the lower to the ground the clouds actually are, the less of the distance, say, a tornadic storm or a tornadic vortex has to travel to the ground to produce tornadoes. So typically the lower to the ground those two are, the higher the chance for tornadoes there is. And so definitely something to keep in mind with this sounding as this goes about later on this afternoon. All right, let's talk about day 2. The day 2 outlook here for Friday, May 28th. Massive 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here, indicated in this dark green, as well as a little bit in Montana and Wyoming. Then you also have a 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here in Texas and New Mexico, as well as here in the Mid-Atlantic. I actually am thinking about chasing this event. Not sure if I'm going to live stream me chasing the event, but I'm thinking about chasing it. And the reason being is as follows. 5% chance indicated in brown, 15% chance indicated in yellow. This is your hail probability outlook. So whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing 1-inch size hail or larger within a 25-mile radius. We also have our wind outlook here. So same thing, 5% in brown, 15 in yellow. Whatever probability you have, that is your chance of seeing 58-mile-per-hour wind gusts or above. And then we also have our tornado risk, and this is a not a bad tornado risk here for the Mid-Atlantic at all. I'm actually watching an area down here south of DC. I know it's right on the border of the 2%, but if it can get into that untapped energy as well as that wind shear, you could definitely see something tornadic right within that general area. And so maybe chasing is in my future here for Friday, and we might be able to live stream it. We'll have to see, but still something to consider as time moves along. We also have the 2% down here for areas near Fort Stockton and Midland, as well as Odessa, but Midland and Odessa are kind of right on the edge of the 2%, so it's still kind of half and half to see for sure as to what all could be happening. But speaking of that area, let's get into the timings here of Texas. So we're going to be using the HRRR again. If you want to follow along, look at the top right-hand corner. It'll have all the information you may need on this event. So by looking at this towards the late morning into the early afternoon, a lot of scattered convection really starts to develop here in southern Oklahoma, northern Texas. And so Dallas-Fort Worth, you guys may start to get a bit of a shaky start to your Friday, more or less, or even just some lingering thunderstorms that could hamper you all here into the late afternoon hours. And then these storms are forecasted to really start to kind of push on through and move a bit further south. And so areas further along the line could get impacted. Potentially places like Waco could even see some severe storms. But then you also have these other storms that are hanging out and about, especially into places of Mexico and further on north of that. There's some storms that really start to kind of pile on through. And you even have some activity that starts to head near Lubbock, even just to the south of Lubbock, heading off into the Snyder, Texas vicinity, and even Abilene. Abilene starts to get into the action here as well. So by around the late afternoon into the early evening hours, these storms really start to consolidate and kind of move on through and move about. And so really something we're going to have to watch out for. But at the same time, we also have to look at other models to determine as to what all could be happening. And I'm going to quickly move over to the NAM 3 kilometer. And the NAM 3 kilometer, at the same exact time that I just showed this last slide, showed that thunderstorms do not exist across the board. So will thunderstorms form like the HRRR says, or will the NAM 3 kilometer prevail and not a lot of activity will impact Texas? That is something that we'll have to look at closer and closer tomorrow. I'll have a video uploaded for you all to basically show you as to what could be happening within your general vicinity. Dew points here are pretty moist here for Texas. A lot of these yellows indicate 60s, which is enough for severe weather, even some in the 70s into the upper 70s here along the coast. even down here near Brownsville, you have a pretty high dew point of 78 within that general vicinity. And so South Padre Island definitely getting a lot of their activity, I'll say for sure. But for the most part, some really moist dew points that do favor some severe weather. Your convective available potential energy, or CAPE, as I said, warm air rising and cold air sinking in the atmosphere. The displacement between the two can determine how much energy there is in the atmosphere for thunderstorms to either form or sustain. So the more energy you have, the stronger the thunderstorms typically are. And we typically want to look for 2,000 joules per kilogram CAPE within these areas of yellow to be able to determine if there's going to be some, the chance for some significant severe weather. And we have that. We have 2,000 joules per kilogram, even higher than that into some of these reds, purples, and whites, which can indicate 3,000, 4,000, even 5,000 joules per kilogram. Actually, the maximum amount down here actually says that it's 5,550 joules per kilogram CAPE. So that's some pretty high amounts that are here within this general vicinity. So there's definitely a lot of energy in the atmosphere for these thunderstorms to feed off of. Now, the wind shear here is not exactly great. I mean, you have a lot of wind shear coming from the south, except for some of these southeasterlies that are over the tornado, the 2% tornado risk area. But you have a lot of southerlies here in southern parts of Texas. It's just that area is not really going to actually be impacted more or less by storms. It's the areas to the north, basically near Dallas, Fort Worth, Snyder, Texas, Midland, Odessa, that will be getting some of these storms, more or less. Sorry, I just hiccuped. But these storms around near Lubbock, around Midland, Odessa, these areas near Dallas, Fort Worth, these are the ones to watch out for your wind shear, and you don't really have a whole lot of it. It's not exactly all too strong here today within some of these areas, but it could get up to 25 knots, which is 30 miles per hour, which is actually not too bad, but it's not too great for winds 1 kilometer above ground level. Taking a look at our 700 millibar wind shear, our 3 kilometer above ground level wind shear, and it doesn't look good at all. I'm going to be completely honest with you. The wind shear here for this event is not superb, and I would anticipate that this will be more or less a hail risk rather than a gusty wind risk, and so definitely something to monitor with all of that. Now let's take a look at the eastern portions of the United States. Huge line of storms that were forecasted to move on through. We had the giant marginal that extended all the way through the deep south and into Texas. And so this is basically going to cover all of that. We have by 12 p.m., this should be Eastern, but we'll say around 12 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Eastern. That's when thunderstorms really start to kind of consolidate more or less and kind of push on through. We also have some more scattered showers and thunderstorms across portions of the Appalachians, moving on through into the mid-Atlantic, and these storms really start to kind of consolidate more or less, heading towards Alabama by around 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time, maybe a little bit earlier than that, at around 3 p.m. And then by 4, that's when these storms really start to kind of push on through here in the mid-Atlantic, and even by 5 or 6, that's when these storms can really start to kind of kick off through here into places of Northern Virginia, Southern Maryland, and a lot of other areas near that. You also have some of these other lingering thunderstorms, this entire line that's starting to move on through into the Carolinas, and as that continues to unfold later on into the evening, that's when these thunderstorms really start to kind of deteriorate, and we will be talking about no longer of a severe weather threat for your general area. Dew points within this event, not exceptionally high. The area down here south of DC is relatively moist, which is the reason why I'm looking forward to this. If I do have the opportunity to chase, if there is a storm that forms right there, there could definitely be something tornadic right within that general vicinity. But we have some pretty high dew points here, 60s or above, even into the mid-60s in some spots of the Ohio River Valley. Now, there is this pocket of lot less moist dew points here across portions of Virginia down into Georgia, and so that could limit a bit of severe weather, but if you have some strong wind shear behind it, then you might be able to get something off of it. Your convective available potential energy is kind of lacking a little bit in some spots, but there are some areas south of DC, as I mentioned, has some pretty high amounts of CAPE and upwards of 2,000 joules per kilogram. You have some other areas that have some decent amounts of CAPE, but not really a whole lot of CAPE here within this event, so some scattered showers that could produce some wind damage is possible. Not a whole lot of hail, in my honest opinion. And our wind shear here, finally, 850 millibar wind shear, or 1 kilometer above ground level winds, actually is not all too bad. We have a bunch of southwesterlies, except for the mid-Atlantic, when we have southerlies here, and so the winds right within that general vicinity could be favorable for something tornadic. If we keep those arrows there and we move to winds higher in the atmosphere, we do have veering with height across most of these areas, so the potential for tornadoes do exist. And we definitely need to watch out for some of these areas with some of these areas here in the mid-Atlantic for the potential of something that could be tornadic. And that's the reason why I think I could probably chase tomorrow and get away with it. Might be able to see something, especially in Northern Virginia. So that's the plan. That's the plan. If I were to storm chase, I would go over there. And I guess we'll have to see if I follow through with that. Last but not least, for weather, we also have our Day 3 outlook here for Saturday, May 29th. And not a whole lot to report, actually. You got a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale here near Virginia Beach, as well as Norfolk along the Outer Banks. And we also have a 1 out of 5 on the severe weather scale extending from basically Fort Stockton into New Mexico all the way up towards Denver, Colorado. So you guys have the chance for some severe weather on Saturday to start your Memorial Day weekend. Now, I will be giving a video tomorrow discussing Memorial Day weekend, so I'll be giving out a forecast that'll be including temperatures, showers, and thunderstorms, and all sorts of stuff. And so if you guys want to stay tuned to that tomorrow morning, then feel free to do so and come back. Last but not least, I have to give a huge thank you to all of these men and women here on your screen who are supporting the channel and are sponsoring it by becoming a channel member. So all these people have been supporting my channel, and I can't thank them enough. If you guys want to become a channel member, get exclusive emotes, get exclusive badges for whenever you talk in my live streams, get exclusive content that gets posted, as well as getting shouted out at the end of my videos in the middle of my live streams on the scroll text at the bottom. Feel free to do so. The link is in the description down below. That's going to be it for me. I might be able to live stream tonight. I probably will live stream tonight with a massive 5% chance for tornadoes. But I'd highly recommend turning on notifications if you haven't already. Subscribe if you are new, as well as like the video if you did enjoy the content, and share this with friends and family who may enjoy this. That's going to be it for me. My name is Nate. I also go by HockeyBoy Nate, and I will catch you guys whenever I post more content. Peace out.